Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 51 of the ITSM crowd. This is a double episode, so we're doing this episode now with a selection of our experts, and then in 11 hours we've got another session that we're doing just to pick up some of our panel members from different time zones. So today we've got guests from Australia, India and Brazil, and our topic is trends for 2019. So we've had 4 weeks, I think, to get used to 2019, to get a little bit of a feel for the shape of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is ask our guests to introduce themselves. So working from left to right on my screen, Basab, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Yeah. Hi, this is Bashab here. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So I am part of the Eastern India, based out of Kolkata. I have been into ITSM for a couple of decades, I would say, and more into the ITIL, into consulting, project management, and kind of IT and telecom. Right now, I am more of a freelancer, a training and as a trainer and as a consultant, and also I am in a startup mode. It's called CAT Global, so which is more of a knowledge enterprise with a due focus in ITSM, and that's and I'm from education wise, I am a BE, BTech or an engineering graduate, and ITIL expert, PMP, and also a Prince 2. That's briefly about me.
Fabulous, thank you. And Michelle.
Sorry, Claire, I didn't know I was next. Yeah, Michelle Major Goldsmith. I'm currently working out of Perth at Kinetic IT. My role is Manager of Service Management Capability. I've been in the industry for about 25 years and sort of more latterly been involved in the developments of SIAM as one of the lead architects for the professional, but also supporting Claire with some of the Verism publications as well. I've stolen Simon's thunder, because he's going to tell you pretty much the same thing. So I'll leave some bits over to him.
Thank you very much. And Nicholas?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Niklas Fredriksson. Swedish from the beginning, but since almost 7 years now working and living in Brazil with IT service management, IT governance, and the last years we have been starting to are digital transformists. That's basically what I and we have been for many years now, helping people or organizations to utilize their technology and information in a better way for their business objectives. And the last few years, digital transformation has kind of a ring to it. So yeah, I'm working in Europe and Brazil, so it's a kind of fun. How should I say, comparison, because it's very different situations, different culture and everything. So you really get to see both sides. So for example, scheduling a meeting or measuring AI and stuff. So it's interesting.
Thanks. Thank you very much. And Simon.
Hi everyone, my name is Simon Dorst. As Michelle said, I work with her at Kinetic IT in Perth, Western Australia, as the Manager of Service Management Services. I'm an ITIL zealot from way back. Yeah, a good title, like when I came up with that. I'm an ITIL zealot from way back, but again, as Michelle said, I've been involved in writing the SIAM bodies of knowledge and participated in some of the Verism publications as well. And yeah, that's very interesting to see how everything is developing, which is kind of the topic of today.
Fabulous. Thank you all very much. So my name's Claire Agutter. We do have some people watching us live at the moment. So if you've got any questions that you want to ask the panel, if you pop them on Twitter using the hashtag ITSM crowd, I am monitoring Twitter during today's session. So we'll pick those up if anything comes. One of the reasons I wanted to focus on trends for 2019 is because of the increasing fragmentation that we've seen across the IT industry, and the fact that it does feel like something new pops up almost every week. And when I was getting ready for this session, I made a list of the ITSM crowd topics that we covered in all of 2018. So we covered mentoring, I think, which is pretty standard. AI Ops, which is the application of artificial intelligence to IT operations. We covered Verism, which is the service management approach for the digital age. We covered business analysis, cloud, enterprise service management. We covered ITIL with the ITIL 4 refresh that's coming soon. We covered automation. We covered human ops. We covered Agile, but also the fact that Agile isn't necessarily working. And we covered service integration and management. So 11 ITSM crowds last year, 11 topics, all of them really, really interesting, really, really relevant, but far too much for any one organisation, I think, to focus on. So there is a sense that there's an awful lot going on in the world, and maybe we need to kind of focus in a little bit and identify what we're going to be working on in 2019. I did see, this is apologies to Jamie Titchener, he posted on LinkedIn to say, please God, protect us from predictions and trends podcasts for each year. So maybe what we'll do in 2020 is look back at this and see whether we were actually correct in what we thought. But we've got a really nice variety of geographical areas on today. So what I'm going to do first of all is just come to you and ask you to tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in your particular areas. So Simon and Michelle, if we can kick off with you, tell us about Australia in 2018 and then what you think you're going to see this year.
I'm really sort of energized by the fact that we're talking about enterprise everything. So last year we've seen, obviously, not just last year, but previously, the Signed Bodies of Knowledge, and we're getting more and more organizations sort of talking to us about how they can use not just service management processes, but also service integration management principles across the enterprise. So I know this is sort of a bit of a buzzword, but it makes perfect sense that people are sort of, it doesn't matter what field they're in, they're seeing themselves as service providers, and therefore the sort of service management principles and the SIAM principles are really alighting their interest, which is fantastic. So that for me is one of the key areas that I'm sort of really looking forward to developing with non-IT people.
And I think just maybe if I could ask you, because we hear the expression enterprise service management quite a lot. What does enterprise service management actually mean?
So I think it's just sorry, Simon, go away. Go on.
Okay, I was just going to say it's a good point, because I think we're using a lot of buzzwords, and so digital transformation is part of enterprise service management. I think it's where we realize that it's not an IT service or an IT product, but it's the enterprise, the business that needs something, and IT is just one of the players in it. Mm-hmm. So it's IT that means for us it's IT integrating with the business with all its challenges and everything that goes with it.
And do you see that as being the major focus in the Australia region for this year?
There's a lot of demand for combining IT and other areas of the business to get faster outcomes. So you can start linking it to why also DevOps and Agile are being abused or used in some cases. And it's also using of technology, which is, again, I think a bit of a pitfall where there are a number of tool vendors that are pushing technology solutions into the business under the guise of digital transformation and things like that. So definitely something we see. Another one I want to add from an Australian perspective is that there does seem to be a big focus on security.
Okay.
Which again is, so we don't have the GDPR just yet, but a lot of our organizations are impacted by it. But there are some changes to the legislation in Australia in terms of reporting and penalties and accountabilities that have made people more aware of it. And I think, again, with the trend of more enterprise focus, we do see that security is an enterprise reputational risk. And it does seem that there is a lot of movement, both from a technical as from an organizational point of view, around security.
Yeah, I think we're certainly in the UK seen a lot of quite high-profile security stories in the news as well, which then bumps it a little bit up the agenda for the C-level.
It does, and I think there's a number of factors in there, but certainly consumer awareness. So at the current time, I think we're just past the opt-out period for central health records. So there's been a big debate here in Australia about security and do we need central health records and it being a target and who's got access and what are the responsibilities and the liabilities. And that's just one example of where these things become more and more a discussion that people are having when they are digitally transforming those business services and everything becomes in the cloud, everywhere available, data everywhere, crossing boundaries, etc., etc. So I think, yeah, it is linked to the enterprise service management movement, but it is very specific to a technology capability as well.
Anything else you want to add to that, Michelle?
I think additionally we've had a few people sort of talking to us, which is quite, again, a really great thing about Verism. So they're talking about how to combine practices, I think, more and more. So I was quite interested to see how, a couple of people ring me up, and I didn't necessarily realise that it sort of been so far stretched, really, because I know it has had sort of a European focus. But again, that's good news, because people are sort of seeing this idea of that management mesh and saying, okay, you guys are talking about all these frameworks and practices, so many of which you've just sort of listed out for us, but also their massive confusion about, well, goodness me, where do I actually start? So I think that's another really interesting perspective that lots of people are starting to consider. There are other ways of doing things in service management. So yeah, interesting times.
Yeah, so the Verism approach is about blending different things, like looking at how, if you've got traditional service management based on ITIL, that might work with DevOps, and vice versa. I think I put an article on LinkedIn yesterday to say, if ITIL didn't exist, would DevOps need to invent it? Because more and more when I go to the DevOps meetups, they're talking about needing a service desk or some incident management or some change controls. I think it is about taking kind of the best of everything and being able to blend that all together, and that's kind of where the Verism guidance is pitched. So it is addressing a very real problem. Okay, Basab, I'm going to move on to you. If you could talk to us a little bit about the India market, please.
Yeah, Bashabia. So for the India market, as just being said, that the DevOps takes a lead part. If we look forward to the kind of Indian scenario, we have more focus on operations support as well as project management, and less focus on the products. So DevOps and Agile, okay, and definitely the whole project management framework takes a big focus while we think of integrating ITSM. The other part is that because of the cost factors, the budget factors in India, we are moving very fast into the cloud. Okay. Mobility is something which actually is something becoming very important these days. So mobility and cloud kind of platform with a DevOps and Agile, I would say, culture, it's getting a lead. And because of the competition, people are looking forward to getting into different standards, and there is a kind of confusion in what kind of standard framework people should use overall, because if we look at there are a lot of overlapping best practices as well as subsequently standards, and there is no guideline or a guide. I would say a way to look forward, that what are the things we and industry should accommodate in his journey,
Yeah.
and the larger journeys, digital transformation, and then how they would actually get into a single, I would rather call a wireframe, which incorporates security, the governance, the ITSM.
Mm-hmm.
One of the key trends I have seen, I don't know about the other parts of the globe, that ITSM is getting into the campus. That's
Yes.
something I find it very encouraging, that at the engineering graduations level, they are having papers in of ITSM,
That's good.
full yeah, a full course on ITSM. Like I was, but specifically involved in around 200 students with around 10 batches,
Mm-hmm.
where the core ITSM with more focus on the ITIL best practices were discussed, taught, and they will have the semester test on that. So that
Yeah.
that's something really encouraging. And now with that, all the governance stuff and security stuff needs to be integrated to a single
Mm-hmm.
framework. Otherwise, especially at when we look forward how to go forward to the whole thing, the whole uh, maturity, it tries to break up, because we are having the different things in different parts and
Mm-hmm.
pieces. The other thing is that IT is penetrating everywhere, that's across globe, and there is a high value of providing ITSM, because ITSM is, I personally feel that ITSM is more of service management and less of IT,
Yeah.
and then this ITSM can be definitely adapted by non-IT industries, which are definitely having their IT tools, but
Mm-hmm.
IT is not their core business, and that's a big, I would say, more of an opportunity than a trend. Uh, and Also, I would say that we have got in ITSM the different flavors coming up, different acronyms coming up, like DSM, ESM, like
Yeah.
digital service management, enterprise service management, and these things needs to be consolidated to a single piece, because I myself get confused at times.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what is ITSM, DSM, ESM? Because these are all part of the same umbrella.
Yeah.
The other thing is the tool automation of ITSM, because we till now we were looking more into getting into the policies and
Mm-hmm.
the processes. Now it's more time to get it integrated across enterprise and into the tools and automation part, and
Yeah.
also when I mean the ecosystem, the extended to ecosystem,
Yeah.
that when we have suppliers, vendors, customers, as well as the service provider, this automation should include their organizations as well. Because if I
Mm-hmm.
look at the entire larger process, okay, the whole process, the boundary is no more the organization, the boundary is the total ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
So that is where, and when I look more towards the digital transformation, then we look into ITSM, less of reactive, less of the typical incident and problem management stuff, into
Yeah.
more which is adaptive, analytic, and definitely the predictive model. And that's
Yeah.
what uh, I briefly find the scenario in India, and I guess it's 80% common with the global trend.
That's brilliant. Thank you. It's very interesting to hear what you say about ITSM moving into universities and education, because I know that's something we still struggle with in the UK. We have a lot of conversations about that, but later this year I'm going to do some lecturing in a European country, and that is focused on just service management. The IT is kind of out of it, but it's looking at how we apply things like Agile and Lean in the development of services for tourism and hospitality. So Nicholas, Andy's joined us. Andy Kiss, welcome, has joined us from London. So Andy's a globe-trotting consultant, so I'm going to come to Andy after Nicholas has given us the update from Brazil.
Okay, so Brazil is a very interesting country, a very large country, and also we are just recovering from a massive monster event hangover. We had the World Cup in football and a lot of investments and a lot of things happening. After that, it was a crisis, and that companies were not really doing a lot of things. They were just like surviving, not investing a lot. But now things are really starting to happening. I'm so happy because the word quality, how should I say, market focuses more on short-term profits, and very now becomes really fascinating to have people start talking about quality, start talking about long-term strategy and those kind of things that we always want to talk about, to align and stuff. So I just mentioned that doesn't really have anything to do specific with IT, but it has a large effect on how corporations think. Last years, before doing European assignments during crisis, talking about process, and really didn't have any people we're not going to do ITIL project. And I said that's good because there's no things such as ITIL project. There's IT service management project.
Yeah.
I had that conversation a lot of times. So now it's coming, and I really like, you talked about the management mesh. Brazilian and the Brazilian market is very practical. So there's not really this religious project. We're going to implement ITIL, the 28 processes and all the KPIs. They just do what they have to get around. So it's very business focused. So that is good. It's good. Also, it's a lot about Agile now, of course, has been, and it's even more now. I see all the meetups that, I get invites to, and the meetings and LinkedIn and the groups. There's a lot about Agile, Scrum, and these kind of, lean stuff, work faster. As I mentioned before, the Brazilian people, in Europe, I'm accustomed to people be really proactive, thinking forward, thinking, how do we, avoid this from happening again? In Brazil, they're also the best people in the world to solve problems that occurs now. They're very passionate and very dedicated to doing things now, which means that, the Agile ways of working fits.
Okay.
In Europe, because there people get, a bit nervous. But, hey, we want to work in a planned way for 9 months here. That's really awkward that you say, an iteration of 4 weeks, So that's my opinion, at least. Perhaps only in Sweden, I don't know. But here in Brazil, Agile works better. Another thing that's really big here that also Simon talked about is cybersecurity. It's a hugely connected market. It's kind of funny because it's also a country that is kind of poor, not really a development country, but almost.
Yeah.
Have problems when there's large gaps between the rich people and the poor people. But in 100 Brazilians, there's, I think that last year they counted about 113 smartphones.
Okay.
So it's smartphones than people in Brazil, which means that it's very connected people. People spend a lot of time online, which has effects on digital products and apps and everything. You can pretty much order anything from home with an app. But that also means that we have problems with cybercrime. Cybercrime is really big here. Brazil is actually number 2 in cybercrime.
Congratulations.
That sucks. It's only China that has a worse situation. So here you got to, you really experience, the effects of, for example, the banks and finance business, how they protect stuff. When I travel, I have to call my bank and say, hey, can I pretty please use my card outside of Brazil? And say, yes, we're going to set it free. You can use your card outside Brazil for 2 weeks. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
They transactions and that kind of stuff. The security here is really big, which is really slow and it's kind of, a blocker. But it's a large focus here. And I was amazed the first time I went to a security conference, cybersecurity. That was like 3 times the people than in the ITSM conference. I was like, hey,
yeah,
I it's much, more, wide, but, security is a focus here. Another thing that I see here is the introduction of artificial intelligence. There's a lot of, how should I say, low, not low value, of course, but it's kind of unqualified service of simply answering the telephone, like call centers, that kind of service here. Most large corporations, they don't do it themselves. So there's these like 4 or 5 big corporations that have, they don't even call it persons answering. They call it the PA, which is the ponto de atendimento, which is like a contact point. They have 3 people around the clock answering the phone. Therefore, AI, artificial intelligence, is so easy because, that's, there's kind of unqualified questions, unqualified answers. So it's a very big potential. And I do see digital transformation here to be a large, it's going to have a lot of, changes in the day for people just because of that.
Yeah.
So fascinating times. Brazil is like vibrant now. And we just had a new president that promised to, privatize companies and do a lot of things, and people have been waiting for that because the social governments are seen as a kind of mafia, too much. So it's a really interesting times here in Brazil, and I think we're going to see a lot of things. So
thank you very much. I think we are going to run slightly over today, so I hope that's all right for everybody, because Andy, I just want to bring you in as well. So thank you for joining us, Andy. If you could we're just kind of sharing a little bit about what we're seeing in terms of trends in different geographical areas. So if maybe you could just share a little bit of what you're seeing in your role as well.
Yes. Hi, Claire. I hope you can all hear me well. I had some proper technical issues with Google Hangouts. I have to admit, I only ever use my Google for my spam mail. I'm not a fan of Gmail, so had some issues. Anyway, interestingly, I was thinking when we were talking about, like when I got the invitation and talking about the trends. And then on Twitter, there was quite a lot of noise and tweets coming out about trends. And somebody was throwing in things like verism, ITIL for whatnot. And it made me think, for me, these are not trends. These are different, I would say, methodologies, approaches, whatever frameworks, whatever we want to call them, which are available for our use. For me, a trend is when something which is available is adopted and used and utilized in a certain way. So if we talk about, for me, one of the big ones is Agile. But what do we mean by Agile? What I see in my environment is more and more Agile projects, more and more companies who are looking for Agile, not just from a software development point of view, but they are looking for how they can make some of their key critical processes and work areas more Agile, how they can adopt a mindset. For me, that is a trend. The Agile mindset, the way of looking at, for example, if as a consulting manager, when I run a bid, I run it in an Agile way. I adopt the working practices, the mindset for that. So for me, that's one of the big ones, and which I really want to see as a trend coming into 2019, where I can see it really adopted and used in effectively in many different areas, because I think it's one of the most wonderful things to use. The other one is, we talked about DevOps. Interestingly, the company I work for released the tech trends for 2019. And one of the key topic isn't DevOps, because DevOps is something which I think came onto the market in many different areas a few years ago now, and it has outgrown itself, matured itself. But there's a lot of talk about DevSecOps. What we mean by that is about more and more companies are running DevOps I would say like ways of working, or how to say it exactly. However, the security controls around DevOps weren't as clear or weren't as mature and weren't, I would say, like highlighted and outlined as fast as DevOps has taken, I would say, like gained momentum. Mm-hmm. So for me, I think DevSecOps, which is a bit of a mouthful, but this is something which I think as a trend is going to be more and more adopted and will gain momentum. Finally, in a service management area, and that was interesting as well, that again, lots of people are throwing in, ITIL 4. What do we know about ITIL 4? We know nothing about ITIL 4, not yet. Because we know nothing about it yet, we cannot call it a trend. Mm-hmm. It is something which is coming, and I think depending on what do we see in it, depending on what is ITIL 4 about, depending on how we are going to be able to use it, what are we going to be able to use it exactly, that will gain, and that will, I would say, burst a trend or mm-hmm. different trends. But for me, ITIL 4 is not a trend. ITIL 4 is something which is coming in 2019 as the refresher or the new coat. And I like to believe it's not just a new coat on the emperor, but something really which is going to really blow our minds. And we are, and after ITIL practitioner and ITIL versions, different ITIL versions, we will see something really practical and exciting. But I want to say it again, for me, this is not a trend yet. We will see once we will know more about it, what outcomes of it will become a trend. However, in service management, what I think is a trend, and I see this in my work environments, and more people are talking about it, there is a real hunger for using service management, not just in IT and not just in IT operations. This is something which was coming, and we talked about it. We called it enterprise service management. We called it all kinds of names. In reality, it is now becoming service management, which mm-hmm. can be, and what tools, what frameworks, what methodologies we prefer using. How do we combine them? Do we combine ITIL versions with DevOps, with Agile, with Verism, with everything? It all depends on us, because all of these are needed for good, successful service management, which can be used across all organizations, in all departments, in all fields. At least this is what I believe in. And I see a bit of a trend coming in where even I myself had to adopt a standard incident management process for a non-IT environment. And it works beautifully. And I think this is the type of the trend I want to see. And finally, again, we talk about automation. Automation in itself is not a trend, again. How and what do we use automation and artificial intelligence for is a trend. And what I see more and more, especially when I look around in the service management area, if I want to restrict it to our field, and the service management tool vendors, there are more and more smarter and smarter service management tool solutions out there who are providing the type of the automation. And I would like to I see better and better artificial intelligence approaches in the tooling, which will assist again in the service management fields to provide better values. So I want to cut it short, but I wanted to touch on these topics, which are nice, so we are not really taking time away from everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy, and thank you to everybody, because I find it absolutely fascinating hearing from the different geographical areas as well. We've got some common trends, but also some differences. I've actually written down a list as you've been talking, which is longer than the list that we started with. So we have had Agile DevOps, quality and kind of business outcomes, which I think is something that's important not to lose sight of. I've grouped automation, AI, technology, more proactive operations together. Service management in education, I think, is hugely important. Digital transformation is linked to Verism. Security and governance, enterprise service management, digital service management, Basab's point, and Nicholas as well, about having a much more mobile and more connected civilization, I guess, more connected citizens, I think is key. And also just, which is kind of where we came in, this general feeling of standards and best practice confusion, which I'm not sure we've fixed today, but I think it's given me food for thought, certainly. So what we'll do is we're running this session again at 6 p.m. UK time, so in 10.5 hours, I think. And then what we'll do is we'll kind of consolidate all that and put that into a blog, and maybe even get a little discussion paper out there as well. So you'll see some more things coming up on social media and on our blog at ITSM Zone. But apologies for running slightly over, but I definitely think it was worth it. Really, really good to hear kind of the Europe, Australia, India and Brazil perspective all in one session. So huge thank you to all of our panel. Perhaps see people later tonight on the 6 p.m. one where we've got a different set of guests, and we also have a ITSM crowd scheduled for the 18th of February where we're going to be interviewing one of the ITIL 4 authors to dig a little bit deeper into that content as well. Thank you all very much, panel, and I will see you on the next episode of the ITSM crowd. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.